I'm all set.
All right. So obviously we're talking about the case and everything that happened. So I guess walk me back to that day, what you remember, I guess feeling, everything around it.
Yeah, that day, it's so hard to believe that it's 17 years, August 28, 2003, and it in many ways seems like it was yesterday to me. It really does, because even to this day, every day it comes up in some fashion. Now at Gannon University, I use it in class to teach new investigators because it's the perfect case from arriving on scene all the way to trial and courtroom and appeals and everything that goes on in between. So every day I still think about it.
So when that call came across, or whatever point, I guess you started to intercept and you were involved with the case, what were your thoughts around that? What were you feeling?
You know, I had been in a career where I was used to responding to bank robberies, had been to several hundred, was the case agent on several hundred. So for me, it was another bank robbery. But for some reason, just in the description of it, it felt a little different from the very beginning. And when I arrived on the scene and saw him talking to the Pennsylvania State Police, over the police cruiser, and I thought, this one feels a little different. And certainly it turned out to be more different than anything I'd ever seen.
Yeah, surface level, obviously the events that happened just with Brian, and then obviously the whole backstory with Marjorie. So I guess, did you ever anticipate, I guess, that was only, the one layer of the onion?
While we're on scene, we're thinking, well, it could be a hoax, but you have to prepare like it's real. Because I've been to hoax bank robberies with devices that were used, hoax devices. And so for us, you have to prepare for the reality of it being potentially real. And when it was, I knew immediately this is different than anything we had ever seen in the FBI, where a live device detonates during the course of a bank robbery resulting in death had never happened. And so immediately it's a horrific event.
So obviously you're still in the area, and it's Upper Peach Street, and the case kind of really location throughout Erie. So what's it like, I guess, whenever you go past the location where the bomb detonated, Brian died?
It's funny, I was just up there yesterday, and there isn't a moment where I don't look at different parts of the scenes and think, oh, this happened here and that happened there. And it'll probably follow me the rest of my life, along with any other investigator that was there and witnessed that horrific day.
So I guess taking a look at that, probably, I don't want to say, without a question, probably the most memorable case.
Mm-hmm. I have some really memorable cases over the years. Some kidnappings still stick with me that were really difficult. Even a case here in Erie that was a very difficult death of a young child. But this one was definitely one of the most unique things I had ever seen in my life.
And then let's talk about, I guess, the interactions with Marjorie. So obviously, everyone's watched the series, so they know some aspects of her. But what was it like for you, that in-person interactions? Were you nervous around her? Were you scared of her? Or were you intrigued?
I think intrigued is a fascinating word, and it really was, where if you had been from Erie, you had heard of Marjorie Deal Armstrong before because of the deaths around her with boyfriends and husbands. So when I was going to interview Marjorie Deal Armstrong, I was totally anticipating this intensity, and it was immediately there. And she was so unique and was actually at some points very fascinating to talk to. And again, when you think that, you think, oh, how can that be? I mean, she was very, evil in ways, but she was funny in ways. She was challenging in ways, but it was always something where if she was feeling comfortable, she would be very interesting to talk to. As soon as she was challenged, that's when she would get very nasty and very mean. And it was some of the most unique interviews I've ever done.
Do you think, so you said evil, an interesting word, do you think she's, I guess, the counterpart genius to that as well?
she was extremely intelligent and she was extremely manipulative. So if you learn those two right out of the chute, that you could anticipate that, it was easier. My background in psychology and forensic psychology, I think, really helped me with her, because it helped me understand why she was saying what she was saying, not necessarily what she was saying. Because what she was saying was mean and nasty, but why she felt she had to say it became the interesting part for me. So I think I was so grateful, in a way, to ever have the opportunity as an investigator to interview somebody like her.
And then let's talk about, I guess, Rothstein a little bit. Was that kind of a puzzle piece that I guess really bridged Brian, I guess, to Marjorie and really brought everything full circle?
Yeah, when you look at, and again, I need to caveat this, and I need to say this right out front. I still, to this day, feel very, very badly for the Wells family. And I never lose sight of that. I mean, no matter what happened that day, he died in a horrific manner in front of now thousands and hundreds of thousands of people on the internet. I mean, you couldn't get any worse way for a family member to die. So I never forget that, and I never lose sight of that. And as an investigator, I think of them often. I really do. And I feel horrific on anniversaries. While I'm talking about this, they're still probably grieving about it. So that will never leave me. Unfortunately, Brian met these people and was duped. He was tricked. And that's unfortunate, because he was killed in a horrific manner by people who took advantage of him. And that's sad.
What, just to refresh, I guess, was it concluded that he was involved, or was it, as you mentioned, he was kind of tricked into doing this?
Right. As an investigator, you follow the facts. And the facts were that Brian was introduced to these people. He had agreed to participate, but did not think it was real. The day he showed up, he saw it for the first time, the device, and said, I don't want to do this. To his credit, he tried to back out, and they forced him to rob the bank after that. And he stuck with the story that they told him while he was robbing the bank. So he tried to get out, but couldn't. And I still don't, to this day, believe that he knew it was real until the very end.
So then, I guess, obviously, you don't have a crystal ball, and you're not a mind reader. Do you think he, I guess, would have ever crossed his mind just walk into the bank and be like, look, this is what's going on, send someone to get this off? Or do you think they, I guess manipulated in a way to think that was something that wasn't plausible?
Yeah, they manipulated him to believe that if he got caught, he was a hostage and he wouldn't get in trouble. If he got away with it, he'd split some money and he would have got away with it and there's no issue. But what they had intended for him was to die. And that's the sad part of this. And he had no idea, obviously, or he would have never participated. So that's why he's described in the bank as very cavalier and took a lollipop from the basket and seemed rather calm. But he had no idea what they had intended for him.
And then let's transition. Obviously, we're years later. Netflix came out, mega successful show. I guess, so what was that like, I guess, as an investigator, being able to share, I guess, these intricate details that at service level no one really knows about, I guess, when it comes to this case? Yeah,
that was interesting working with Netflix, because they initially wanted to, seek where the truth was. At the end, I think they got a little confused with the slant that they wanted, and that's okay, that's entertainment. But if you follow the facts and you went to the trial where we presented the evidence on Marjorie Deal Armstrong, unfortunately, there was this group of people that put this case together and tricked Brian into robbing the bank. And so it's entertaining in a way, but the reality at the end for Netflix, I don't think was quite as accurate as it could have been.
You did mention the trial a little bit. So I guess, what was the most damning piece, I guess, for Marjorie? Would you say herself, just, I guess, the outbursts that she would have, or what would you say?
Marjorie was trying to do two different things. She was trying to cooperate and profess her innocence at the same time. And those were incongruent. It didn't work that way. And when she was saying things that she thought were helpful, they were actually hurting her. But independently from Marjorie Diehl Armstrong was Ken Barnes. And Ken Barnes actually told the story without any knowledge of what Marjorie had told us. And both the stories were exactly the same. So for them to tell them independently proved that Ken Barnes knew exactly what happened. And he came in to his credit and testified against her.
This is, I guess, probably poor phrasing of the question, but I guess, do you think, obviously Marjorie had some mental issues going on. Do you think, I guess, she, in a way, was kind of a victim in that regard? Who did a horrific thing?
Yeah, it's often brought up about mental illness and criminality, and she definitely had mental illness. There's no question about it. And psychiatrists and psychologists even had conflicting views of what it was. But she knew the difference between right and wrong. And that's really what it was. Competency was there. She knew she could assist in her own defense, and she could understand the proceeding against her, and she was able to go to trial. At that point, they determined that she definitely had the involvement and the wherewithal to know what she was doing.
And then, I guess, obviously hindsight's 2020. Do you think with the investigation and then being on scene that day, is there anything you'd have done differently, or is there any mistakes that were made? Obviously within the movie, and I believe Wells' family, a big issue, like the gun strung on him, was obviously he was handcuffed on the ground. I guess, is there any regret with situations like that?
Tactically, no. I don't see anything tactically we could have done different. You're going to always protect first responders and the people that are responding as far as the bomb squad and the other officers. So I think we did everything pretty well there. Interviews of some people's, interviews of some people that we missed, with Robert Panetti, for example, you never wait. We were going to wait till a Monday to interview him, and he dies on a Sunday 3 days later, and never got that chance. So those are things that, you might have done differently. But as far as who was involved and their roles, I think the investigation clearly got to the right people.
Perfect. Anything else, obviously, out of your million times you've done this, anything
Yeah.
new or exciting that you'd like to add that you've never said before?
Well, I think Marjorie gets credit as the mastermind, but Bill Rothstein was the one that put this all together. Marjorie wanted the money from the bank to pay Ken Barnes to kill her father to get her inheritance, but Bill Rothstein put together the scheme, the scavenger hunt, the notes, the bomb, the killing of Brian Wells. That's on Bill Rothstein. Marjorie was definitely involved in the plot and wanted the money, but I don't think Rothstein is given enough credit for how much involvement he had in the overall designing of this plan.
What do you think on his deathbed he still would not admit?
That still kills me to this day, because I interview him and say, don't take this with you. Tell me Wells and Roden, the poor man in the freezer, are related. And he lifted his big arm out of the bed and said no. And 4 days later he was dead. So he brought it with him. And it was the ultimate, see you later, I'm much smarter than you and you're never going to figure this out.